Hello everyone. I'm resuming my sort of card art series to preserve the art of TESL before the game ends. We're now into early January. I had to put the series on hold because of family circumstances, so now I've got a little bit more time I can actually get back to it. So I thought I'd start with the, well, I know I've done the agility cards, so I thought I'd move on to the strength ones. So I quite like the card art on this. I know it's not a card that's played very often, but I actually think it gives a good sense of movement here. I think I actually prefer the standard version. It's just that I know the smoke on that's quite nice, but I'm not really convinced the gold sort of flickering is that. To me, it looks more like flames rather than speed. I think it's meant to convey speed. I just think the art looks a bit more defined on the standard version. Now this is a card that's very rarely seen on ladder. It's normally only seen if it's pulled as a random sort of plot ability. I think I did actually see somebody. Let's just admire for a moment the flame effect there. I did actually see somebody play it on ladder last season. As a pyromaniac at heart, I always like seeing any cards that got flame effects on them, so I'm just going to gaze at that hypnotically for a moment. Now this is a card that gets a lot of play. Very useful, cheap way of adding breakthrough damage to be paired with Unstoppable Rage. And I think I actually prefer the standard card version. It's just the art's a bit more defined on there than here. Now this one is obviously heavily played on ladder, particularly it gets generated by Raiding Party. The art's okay on it, it's nothing special. That's definitely a case where the premium's better. You've got the sense of movement in the background and the light on the weapon. And of course you've got the sort of alt art version. I forget which event I got this from, but I think the art on that is a lot better, and of course I do like the snow effect. I just think that one's much more, it's just up a notch, isn't it, in terms of the standards of the art and the fluidity of the movement. Now this little chappie always seems to get played in Doomcrag decks. Obviously it's direct damage, and if it's in the same lane as Doomcrag, it can... Doomcrag. Oh, Doomcrag! I can't talk today, can I? Well, it is late anyway. If he's in the same lane as Doomcrag Vampire, then obviously he can insta-kill any creature no matter how powerful, so he's quite a useful little card. I think I prefer the standard art for that one. I just think there's almost a little bit too much distraction going on there. I think his face and armor just looks more defined in the standard version. We've got the cloak, and then we've got the dagger. Quite nice art on that one. I think again I prefer the standard art on that. I almost find the details on there a little bit too distracting. That's better. I like the smoke on the stairs, but the cloak itself, I think I prefer the standard art. This one does get a fair amount of play, particularly in aggressive decks. Quite often they'll like silence a creature in order to get past a guard if they know they can make the kill that round. I've also seen people use it to silence their own creatures just to get that extra bit of damage to face as well. Again, I just think I prefer the standard art on that. It's almost a little bit distracting. The tatters on the clothes and things. Not a great fan of their hairstyle. This mainly gets played in Orc decks, obviously. Not all Orc decks play it, but I have seen it recently on that. I'm just not a great fan of the art in this one in general, in either version really. Again, this is a nice cheap option for breakthrough damage. Personally, I prefer playing item cards if they've got mobilise, but this is a nice cheap option if you want some extra sort of breakthrough damage and you're playing an aggressive deck. I quite like the art on that. Not just the dagger, but also her outfit there. It looks quite nice. Maybe I'm just having a day where or an evening rather, where I actually prefer the standard art to the alt art. But I think I do prefer the standard art. This is nice, it's got the candle and that, but I actually just think the definition on the standard art, particularly the outfit, is nicer. I suppose because these two details detract a bit from that. Explore, often used in Unite decks. I think because this is a promotional card, I don't think I had any option to have a standard version. Let's check. Did I miss one? Yeah, there's definitely only the one version. Let's go back to it again. Mainly used in Unite decks. It's pretty much a dead giveaway when you see it. Quite atmospheric, the art, isn't it? Now, this is an old favourite, but I suppose because when I was a newbie, it's one of the first cards you. It's easy to play aggro when you're a newbie anyway, and it's one of the early cards that you get that's quite cheap. So, we've got time for a little fiery imp. Okay, so we've got a little bit of movement going on here that's more subtle. Yeah, I think I do actually. In this case, I do prefer the premium. It's quite close run things. I like the definition on the standard art as well. But when you actually stop and look at that for a while and notice the movement in the background, it's quite interesting. Now this one's also a favourite. Well, I've got lots of cards that I've got a soft spot for, but this is one of them. A couple of years ago, I made a firepot spider deck and took it out. I don't remember if it was on ladder or casual, but the person I was playing against did not realise or didn't read. I suppose they were unused to seeing it. They didn't read what its last gasp was. And I think I was basically just playing a firepot spider deck purely to add lethal to it using the Skimmer Racketeer. This one offers something tasty, so I paired them up, and therefore when they actually killed it, it took out the whole lane because it not only dealt 1 damage, but the creature had lethal on it, so their whole lane went, and then they put oops in the emotes afterwards. It was a very funny moment. So yeah, I'm quite fond of Firepot Spider. Never really played this. I know it's used sometimes in self-harm type decks. I'm not really a great fan of the art on it, to be fair. Yeah, I'm not really a great fan of either version. I remember the month that it came out as the monthly reward, I was like, oh, that's not much of an incentive to to get to Legend, but it happened in month when I got there anyway, because some months I didn't bother playing beyond rank 4, but I did kind of get it anyway for monthly reward, but I wouldn't have bothered otherwise. And this is a very good card when you're new and you don't have much ability in terms of deck stuff and that. And I quite like the art on it. It's fairly subtle, the movement on the premium version. I think I prefer the standard version actually. Now, obviously a lot of the Daedra on the invade cards aren't very attractive anyway, but this one looks particularly gruesome. The premium's definitely better because you've got the fire effect in the background as well as the smoke. It makes it a lot more atmospheric. Kind of laugh about this one because this guy's one of the outcasts in the game, isn't he? You play him in the early deck when you're doing the stories and that, but you don't actually ever see him on ladder or even in casual. So he's kind of one of TESL's outcasts. It's alright, the art on that one. It's just nothing special, is it? Can't really expect much for a card that's got those stats and that cost. Rapid Shot, one of the most used cards in the game for sort of aggro decks or who want draw, or for any deck really running strength. Yeah, I like the I like the art on both of them, but the premium version it definitely has a lot more definition and points of interest in it, doesn't it? I like the sense of movement. Ratway Prospector. I mean, it's quite nice art there. I just don't like the voice of the character of the card. It's like, I find like this belongs in the museum, but I can't do the rubbishy accent. But I don't like the accent anyway. It just annoys me. Yeah, you can actually. I think although you've got the light going across her face, the definition and the contrast with the background, it just seems a lot better defined there. So I think I prefer the premium. But I still don't especially like the card because when it gets covered, so it can be quite hard to actually kill it, and just I don't like the voice on it. This is an old favourite, again one that when you're new and tentative towards aggro games is popular. And I do definitely, there's no contest here. I actually crafted the premium versions of it for a Christmas special that Schward did on his channel, his Incarnate channel, and it was a case that, so it was like 2 years ago. So that'll be Christmas 2023. Was that right? Yeah. Well, whatever Christmas it was. I'm not good at I tend to live in the now, so I don't tend to think about timelines really. Well, I started wittering on about how many years ago it was. But anyway, I crafted this specifically for playing snow decks for the Christmas special that Schward was doing that year. And it was great fun because I played against Banana Schwab friends, and one of the games I was able to get that to go off. I had 2 of them. I think it was 2 on the board. And I was able to get it to go off, but also just the snow effect it's stunning, isn't it? It always, before the game was being wound down and everything became available for 1 gold, it seemed a very expensive card for what it does. But for me, it was worth the gems I crafted on it because it was so beautiful. Now, Serethi Scion, I actually have a bit of a soft spot for this card as well. I like it when this is my family has endured enough, and also it's good to have a nice cheap rally card, isn't it? I think I prefer the standard art on this, although you've got the nice light coming through the window and the glint on the sword. Just think the art stands out more on the sort of standard version. Maybe it's because, looking at that, I mean, you've got the darker background, so it does have more definition in the way it stands out. Whereas also the smokiness here makes it less impactful, to my mind. Good old Scuttler. Never played outside of the practice matches and that. I might have to do a Scuttler, a scary Scuttler deck before the game ends. Just maybe a deck based around Rally and see if I can get a really massive Scuttler just for a laugh. Quite like that idea. He looks a bit fed up, doesn't he? Probably he never gets played, really. Yeah, I think... Again, maybe it's just my mood tonight, but I do prefer the standard version. This is a case of which I mean, this gets played a lot in Doomcrag decks, again, because it's direct damage, instant, and you can kill creatures if it's in the same lane as Doomcrag Vampire. I actually think the original art's better than the alternative art. Again, it's okay. I think sometimes the light effects, while they can be quite attractive, I think sometimes it detracts from the art and distracts from it. So I prefer this standard version. Now here's the old art version, and it's just very dark, and I just don't like the art as much. And the other one's got more colour in it and vibrancy. Nothing special to say about this, really. It's decent enough, but it's nothing to say much about, really. A lot of the item ones, you just got the light gleaming on the weapon and a bit of light sweeping across the screen, so it's okay. Again, a very highly played card, nice and cheap, but easy to kill if it's your opponent playing the card. It's alright, but it's not one of the better arts in my opinion. Sorry, I'm just a bit sleepy because it is quite late here. I'm not sure that's an improvement, really. We've got a bit of dust or mist on the ground, and then... Yeah, it's not really... But I had to pick between the two. I probably think the standard one was better. Okay, I don't really want to talk about the invade cards too much, but equally it's not fair to pretend they don't exist. Not really a great fan of the art on this one. The flame effect's okay, but again, I'm not really a fan of the art. It is what it is. So it's quite a useful little card, this one. I quite like the art on it. I think the premium is actually superior in this case. The colours and the whole sense of fluidity around the bow are very effectively conveyed, so I like that effect. Again, one that gets played an awful lot. Even though it doesn't really get a massive buff, people always seem to be desperate to shut it down when it's on the board. I definitely prefer the premium version. The art's good on both of them, but you've got the lovely flame effect in the background, haven't you? That actually makes the character stand out a bit more. And you don't tend to see this on ladder very much. Did see it once last season. Again, that one, that's okay, the premium, but it's just, I mean, the colours on it are quite nice, but I'm just not a great fan of it in general. It's okay. Now, this is another one that I've got a soft spot for. I touched upon it earlier. I like items to have mobilise, because that way you can play them to field if you've got no creatures, so they're not clunking up your hand. And I've used Ebb and Thread Cloak a lot, actually. I think I prefer the standard card, because it's, although it's got a sense of movement in there, it just looks more defined, the cloak on that. But I've used Ebb and Thread Cloak a lot. Particularly, it's fun if you're wanting to play Transmogrify and then you get a big creature out. Then you can stick an Ebb and Thread Cloak on there, so it can't be an action can't destroy it that round. So you get value out of it for like a round, and it's also good because you can use it for things like if you're doing an Imposter's Mission deck, which is great fun. I'd always recommend. I know it's not particularly viable on ladder, but an Imposter's Mission deck is great fun to do. But once you actually summoned your large creature, you want to ensure it doesn't get silenced, so you can add an Ebb and Thread Cloak on. So I've used it very successfully there as well. Definitely prefer the standard version of the premium. Fear Totem, I do actually like the art on this, even though it's not a card I personally play much. Like the blue, sorry, the greens and the red, the contrast between them. Quite an attractive premium. I know this card gets used a lot in aggro decks in order to unsummon their own creatures and then get the effect off again. For example, the Elite earlier that hits face when you're putting it on the board. This one's okay. I mean, I'm not a great fan of supports generally. The art's alright on it. I think I much prefer the wintry premium version, which again I crafted that. A card I don't really play, but I crafted it for the Christmas special that Schward did a couple of years. I think it was a couple of years ago. And that's when we were doing snow and ice themed decks. So although it's not a card I generally use, I did actually have a fond association with it from that time period. I'd never ever see anyone playing this on ladder. Not a great fan of the art, to be blunt. Again, although it's got some interesting movement and a nice flame effect, it's not enough to catch me really. The art on this is decent. I very rarely play orcs, but he's off staple in those decks, but also in a lot of aggro decks as well. There's not a huge amount going on here, is there? I actually think I prefer the standard version of the card. This one's got a nice snow effect on it. It's the old art version. But although I like the snow effect on it, I don't really think the colours or the they just don't seem, they're more muted. It's just not as attractive as the way the clothing's done on the other card. This one's okay. I think it's just not anything special really, is it? I'm still not really much of a fan of that, even in the premium. Maybe it's because the greens are a little bit too light for my taste and it makes it look a little bit insipid. Here we go, Gerald Forager. Now this has got fond memories for me. One, for when I first discovered the game and she was in one of the early decks. And 2, because I had a video, I think it was last year, 2024, which was trying to do lethal on Rage with Gerald. It was great fun. I crafted the premium Gerald purely for that video, and then of course she was quite shy about turning up. Maybe I'll revisit Gerald before the game finishes. And I do prefer the premium version of the Gerald, by the way. So Mage Slayer, I did go through a phase where I tried making him work in a deck. It's good that he can't be damaged by actions, but he's actually quite easy to take out anyway, isn't he, when you look at his health. I remember the first time, I do quite like the premium. I mean, it's better because you've got the interest on the shield and such. But the first time I tried to use him, I remember it was a big damp squiff because I was playing against somebody who was running endurance, and they just, as soon as he hit the board, they just silenced him. I mean, the art's okay, but it's not anything that special, is it? I quite like the shield effect though on that. Again, another staple, not just in Orc decks, but anyway. Not a huge amount to say about this one. I mean, the art's okay on it. I love the effect of the card, but I'm not a great fan of the art. But then maybe I'm just not a great fan of Orc art in general. This one at least has got the interest of the sort of movement in the background. This one's a bit better. It's one of the better Orc arts in my opinion. You can see a lot more detail on the clothes, and there's the sense of light. Well, obviously, me loving a good fire, this version I prefer to the original because you've got the flame effect on here, and there's still decent definition on the outfit. But some of the premium cards, they always look a bit washed out, so depends what effects they put on it. But this one, I think they managed to strike a good balance between having that sense of movement and light, and also still keeping the definition of the clothes. This one's okay. I very rarely see this item being played on ladder. It's okay, but there's nothing much to say about it. Yeah, I mean that's better because you got the effect in the background and the detail on the swords picked up more. There's still not a huge amount to say about it. There was there. This little fella, I have actually used in a animal deck recently. I used to run a Ebon Zoo, and although I deleted that deck after I did a Clear in the Deck series, the other day I fancied playing some Ebon animals again. So although it wasn't the same deck, and this guy wasn't in my original deck, I put him in the new one, and it's been quite fun to play with him. I definitely prefer that version. It's got a sense of movement on it. This one's okay. I mean, I'm not a great fan of the art. Maybe because you can't see their face particularly well. I suppose the movement and the light does actually help it stand out a little bit better. The horse certainly seems to stand out a bit more. So it's okay. I think the premium is the better of the two. Plunder's alright. It's decent enough card. I mean, it does give you 2 items for quite a low cost. The art on it, it's okay. It's nothing I'd get overexcited about. Even though that's got the nice icy blue sort of sheen on it, I think I actually prefer the definition on the older sort of version. Now here's another buddy of mine. I play him a lot in my Ebon decks. Basically, it's good, decent early damage, isn't it? And it's also useful to have a guard as well if you've got something you want to protect early on in the game. This is a case where I actually prefer the standard version to the premium because I think, again, the definition of it all just stands out better on the standard version. Oh, I love this kitty. Anyone who's watched my Fashion Police deck will know that this kitty made it into my Fashion Police deck, which was a deck in which I was playing creatures whose outfits I liked. Now, I like this card both in the standard and the premium version, but just having that sense of movement there is even better. So the premium is definitely my favourite. Now, this guy's been a good little helper in the last season. I was playing Covenant a lot, and he was very, very useful for helping to buff items up. When you draw him, it's really good in a Covenant deck. When you don't draw him, it's just another layer of difficulty being competitive, really. But when you get the value off of him, then it's really good. I do prefer the premium. I know that there's very subtle differences with this one, but in terms of the lighting and what have you, but I do actually quite like the premium. Probably a bit fond of the card because I've played it a lot over the past month. This one gets played a lot in aggro decks, and it's decent. I'm not a great fan of the art. I'm not really a great fan of it on the premium either. I don't think the extra colour, much as I like colour, I don't think it really adds much to it. I very rarely see salvage being played on, if any. I don't think I've seen it for a good couple of years on not that I recall anyway. The art's okay on it, but it just seems a little bit insipid to me. You do sometimes see this as a closer out on ladder, but not often. Again, maybe it's because the forest behind is quite light. There's not as much definition there, so maybe that's why I'm less keen on it. That's better because you've got a sense of movement, you've got the hair and the weapons. That one's better, but I think maybe it's because the green on the back is a little bit insipid. That's why it's not really one that I would see as a standout. I used to play him in well, I pretty much do in any deck that runs strength stroke red cards. I like the art in both, but the premium does kind of is better because it's got that wonderful sense of movement and light to it, really. I don't really ever play this item. I know it's good in sleigh decks and that, but I don't tend to run traditional sleigh. The art's okay, but it's not one I'd seek out. I mean, that's okay, it's got the sword, which is kind of lit up and everything, but it's still not. It's not one of my favourites. Tiny Dragon's very cute. Obviously, mainly played in Dragon decks where can be used as removal in Doomcrag decks where Doomcrag vampires on the board, and then I sort of and then you've got like the lane effect that so with Doomcrag that will wipe out a whole lane for the damage it inflicts. Nice and simple, the sort of alternative version. Now this here is niche, but to me one of my favourite cards to play in a Dwemer deck. I play it in Dwemer Crab because basically it can get you past any guard, it can get you past Dark Seducer, all sorts of nasty stuff. So when you're trying to get interface and get a quick kill, it's wonderful. And if I run Galen in my Dwemer Crab, and if I can get a copy of this to copy it, then and get extras, then I will, because it's just so valuable. Nice cheap silence for any problematic cards that you're having to get around. I do think I prefer the premium version just because it's quite atmospheric as well. You've got the smoky. Sometimes the smoke and the light can detract from the art, but in this case it's quite nice the way it sort of washes over the fabricant and makes its eyes seem to come alive if they're glowing from within. Eldora, I've never actually played her. It does get played a fair bit, but it's become kind of traditional for me to actually kill Skywag, the bird that gets summoned when she goes off. That bird's vicious, you know, because it can get quite big, and so you have to kill Skywag pronto. The art on it's okay, it's just a little bit wishy-washy for my liking. Obviously this gets played a lot with aggro decks, because they can then hide their creature and avoid you, unless you've got some kind of silence or direct removal, they can avoid you. They basically it creates a good problem from the opponent's point of view. Got a big problem to sort it out. I think I prefer the standard version, because although that's meant to be a sensitive movement, it just has more definition on the standard version. Now, as I said earlier, I'm not a great fan of the orc art in general. This one's okay. However, when you add a snow effect, then that just elevates it, doesn't it? So that's definitely my favourite of the two. Now this little fella, I mean the art's not great, it's not my style personally, but it's a great useful card to run in, what was it, the Hexagauntlet, the one that was we call the Swindler's Market Gauntlet, because it basically makes their cards more expensive and shuts down Swindler's Market. They're very useful for that niche event. The art on it's okay, but it's just not one of my favourites, this one. It's a very useful card though. Yeah, I mean the premium's quite nice, but I don't think it's anything. It's not one. It wouldn't be one of my favourites. Put it that way. It's okay. It's a useful card. I mean the art's a little bit insipid in the background, isn't it? In this case, the actual extra light sweeping across the screen and the light around the bow do actually help to make this card stand out a bit more. As the first version, a little bit insipid. This is definitely the better of the two. This always makes me laugh. It's a big body for very little cost. Okay, you get smacked in the face as well. That helps you to draw as an aggressive player. So look at its teeth. I do prefer the premium version, just because you've got the colours in the background do make it stand out more. Now this is very popular draw, not just in Invade decks, but it's also very popular in other decks as well. Provided you've got a wounded creature, it could be one of your own or the enemies, you can still draw a card, so it's very useful and not quite often played. Again, it's got quite a nice flame effect. It's just that I think sometimes the smoke effect can be a little bit too dimming to the picture. It's okay. I mean, I like the art on this, but it's never a card that I would use unless I got it randomly generated. So it's okay. It's nothing special. Yeah, and the snow on this is quite nice. So that's definitely a better version. I mean, you think all the premiums would be better by default, but some of them, the art just is a bit more obscured. Now it's okay, it's nothing to write home about, is it really? I actually think the buff here is not enough, really. Again, that's fairly... There's quite subtle differences, really. It's okay, but nothing special. This one always makes me laugh because he says, I've got to get out of here, I don't want to die. And that, but you just know he's going to have a weapon equipped for him and then he'll be able to fight like anyone else. Well, that's nice because you can see the flame effect there. It shows that he's still working on projects and things as well, doesn't it? I mean, the rest of it's quite subtle in terms of sense of movement. Yeah, there's not a huge amount going on in the background there. Now, I'm trying to leave aside my own dislike of invade cards in order to be a bit more impartial. I mean, the art on that, it's okay, it's not really anything that special again, is it? The premium's definitely better because at least you got the sense of movement with it. I don't often play this card, but I know a lot of people do. I'm just not a great fan of the art on it. I mean, that's got a couple of nice light effects on it, but it's still not great art. And you think it would actually need to have an effect nearer where the trunk is so that you could highlight that issue. Again, this one is used in Invade a lot and obviously gets buffed a lot with the gate, but I'm not a great fan of the card art. That's a bit better because it's got the flame effect, but it's not really anything to write home about art-wise, is it? Hello, Marcia. So I do like the consume effect index. This is a little bit more expensive than some of the effects you get in blue or intelligence, but I do like this card. I've used it in an arena quite successfully. I've also used it in some ladder matches. Normally something niche, but I think it gives good value. Particularly if you're running Archer, you can combine this with imbued boss note. It's really good, and you've got a 4/4 with lethal. In fact, I think imbued boss note might give a plus to health as well. I'll have to double check, so it's been a while since I've played it. But yeah, let's go back. I like the art on that. And he did feature in the snow Christmas tournament. Some people argue that's rain, but I saw it as being sleety snow, so I was able to get away with it. Very fun card in self-harm decks. Again, I think some of the detail is a bit distracting really, and it also makes it look more faded, so I think I prefer the standard card. Again, it's alright, but a lot of the old cards I'm not really into. Nice flame effect on this one though. The flame effect's very good there, and obviously it's very useful for direct damage to face in aggro decks. Yeah, I definitely prefer the premium version. Yeah, this card's almost like an auto-include. Firstly, I love the plot ability. Secondly, it's a little bit cheaper than Spinner, so you can just shut something down that little bit earlier. Again, I suppose the colours are quite muted there, so I'm not a great fan. Maybe it's just the light on the bows making the colours in the back look even more muted to me, but I think I prefer the standard art version for this. So the Minotaur is again a very popular card. The art on it's okay, but maybe it's just the style of these types of cards. A lot of them, there's lots of earth colours, and I'm not really that bothered about it. But that's nice. You got the falling leaves effect, a bit similar to the leaves effect on the little Khajiit arms when it hits face. So kind of a similar effect for that in terms of the visual at the background. I definitely prefer that version.